Welcome back to the Friday Dose, the Backupmonster show. My own sweet disaster recovery. We have for you a special guest. Let me introduce Christian Petersson from Cristie Nordics. When we met?
3 years ago, I think.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think in US,
Yeah.
one of the IBM conferences.
Yep.
It was related, of course, about the data protection conferences. One
Of course.
them.
In
Edge.
Sin City.
I think it was Edge.
In Sin City.
In Sin City. So, how was your flight, my friend?
Early bird. I start 4:30 this morning, so
I wake up at 5:50. Okay, so you are more tired than me.
now another coffee. That's good enough, you know. Used to with travel, so that's why.
I heard that you have a really hot holiday and the weather during
yeah.
the summer. Hey,
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah.
I was a little bit afraid of this question.
What is
Okay.
Hot of what?
As a kid, I always go to Italy. I love the weather in Italy. I always wish we could have the Italy weather in Sweden. We finally got it. Finally.
So what you doing daily when you close your laptop, going home, and you have one of the hottest summer?
One
in
good
Europe?
thing, cold beer and a barbecue. Big barbecue, that's wonderful. It's, put ribs, whatever on the grill, make sure it's a lot of smoke it a lot, and stand there for like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, drinking your beer, enjoying with your friends, have a good time, let the kids play around. Perfect summer.
So I think also about some sailing.
No,
I saw in the
no.
social media.
No, yeah. So that's a kickoff we had in our office.
Ah, okay.
My actually social media profile should actually be more profiling golf, nice culture, more activity based.
Okay. You're not sailing guy.
No,
So just
but it's a nice picture, isn't it?
yeah, that's why I recognize and remember this picture. So our major topic today is to talk about some disaster recovery. What is the story of the disaster recovery? And could you also share your best practices and experience on this field?
Sure. I can. Disaster recovery is so big, and so many scenarios out there that can actually be a disaster recovery. And so before we start going into detail how everything works, or let's go back. In the history list, when I started, everyone was like, we take a bunch of tapes, old traditional tapes, move that one into offsite. Like they actually physically move that data into somewhere.
Okay.
Disaster recovery in one sentence is something happened, something disappeared, and you need to get it back now. That's basically a disaster. If you don't get it back now, then you're lost. This is actually real scenarios happening out there, and we see so many failed disaster recoveries. It's really interesting. That actually something people doesn't test it because they don't have time for it.
You said about some history. So let's come back 20 years before.
Yeah.
And could you explain a good practice and how companies design the disaster recovery?
When I started back in late 90s, there was like people took all the tapes they had, make a copy, full backup, whatever they had, weekly, daily basis, monthly basis, took the tapes, moved them to an offsite somewhere, a vault, whatever. So if a disaster happened, it could actually take days before they get back all the tapes. Can you imagine didn't get back your document for more than a couple of days before?
I remember when I designed this kind of the offsites and DRaaS, it was always related to the tapes. This is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
and when you start restoring from tapes, it takes forever. It takes forever.
That's a few months.
Yeah, it's like, we want to restore a server, it takes a month for it. Like, no, it's not. This is not
Ben,
even close.
imagine that you have a great party. You lost yourself, and you needed 3 months to coming back on a stage.
Recovery.
No, this is a disaster.
Disaster. It happened a few times,
Yeah.
right? I guess.
So 20 years ago, the disaster recovery always connected to the offsites and the tapes. But it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What's happened next?
Basically what happened is that few companies invented a couple of new names coming out, like RTO, RPO. That means then for recover point objective or time, restore time objective. But also other things comes up such as BMR, disaster recovery, and so on. And those terminologies has been shaping up and causing the whole boring backup piece to be more, more fun and more interesting to working on, and actually be more critical for companies to actually have a procedure working. I have been seeing so many procedures out there where people are say that, oh, we want to restore that server, and they're digging into the archive with so many, piece of papers or documentations, and it took forever to restore those processes.
Tell and explain this. This man, because what I've seen, what's going on in the market, this is like the typical disaster recovery plan looks like in the most companies. Could you describe how you see it? Maybe you have some examples.
Actually, this is really typical how, if something happened, the first thing most customers or most backup people or CIOs, CDOs, or whatever, first thing they're thinking is, now something happened, please help me. And I actually have, back in the history, to the right, I actually had a really interesting customer. They have a lot of food stores everywhere in the world, and they need to count with all kind of disaster recoveries.
Okay.
So one of their disaster recovery plans was actually, if a tornado comes in, literally pull the red drives from the disk system and run. That was their disaster recovery plan.
This is one of the good practice from the Christian customers. Take, pull the drive, and run.
And basically, we could actually recover the entire store from those 2 drives.
So I think simplest procedures, yeah? I don't know if it's effective, but...
No, but it worked,
But this is a true story, yes?
Yeah, that's a true story.
It's
Incredible.
definitely healthy.
Yeah, and now they actually
It's
knew...
jogging.
No, but basically they knew from that recovery what kind of inventory they get lost. So they had full inventory from the entire store, what actually happened on those 2 drives.
Okay, so
It's actually really interesting that you can restore entire environment from 2 drives. That's it.
do you have any other examples? Because I like this one.
Oh,
So
I have plenty, But another one is that a CIO, he really want to test it. He really want to go to leading edge on his disaster recovery.
it's also important because most of the scenarios, the CIOs should care about this kind of the procedures.
Or even
we'll come back to that later.
Yeah. But anyway, so CIO at that time, he was like, I want to try my backup. I want to really see if it works. So he went in, middle of the night, went into the data center, pulled off the internet cable, basically disconnect the entire data center, called everyone and said that we have a disaster. Our entire data center is down. What happened? Of course, Dilbert and everyone else tried to log in through VPN or whatever tools they have. They couldn't access it because it was disconnected. So when he knew everyone was actually running to the DR center, he pulled in, drive safely to the DR center, sit there watching when everyone was panicked, screaming for help, and said that we need to restore our data center now in this area. And he actually got a full practice, and he saw so many mistakes what's going on in that sentence. So he actually need to make sure his disaster recovery plan was actually fixed up. And when it went into like 50% of the DR, I said that, don't worry guys, this is just a practice.
Okay, but you
Of
mentioned one important thing. We need to have a practice. You need to test it.
Yeah.
And I think most of the companies, they thinking that they have a good procedure and they can easily switch from one side to the other.
Yeah.
But the reality is a different.
Yeah, and if you look at, that was more like a history, because back in the history, you need to call back, retrieving all the tapes from offsite.
Okay.
More and more companies today are sort of, they going into, more disk-based or cloud-based off-site retention. So that means they don't send off the tapes anymore. They go into cloud. They go to whatever, Google, Azure, Amazon, whatever cloud provider out there. You offload your off-site to the cloud. That means you actually have access to it 24/7. So now you can actually more automating your restore test. And by doing that, you can actually, instead of have the evil boss coming in and unplug the data center, you can actually now sort of continue to do DR tests of entire systems. Much more easier. But the most interesting is that I see so many customers doesn't prioritize that. Is, they have the entire business on leading edge and they don't test the DR.
Right. And I think it's also the problem with the human factor. The people is believing that it's working, we don't have a time. So if it's replicated on copy to the Amazon or anything else, and somebody is giving them the assurance that you can easily switch because you can easily automate the process, they feel comfortable. But the truth is totally different. Let's think about the future, Christian. So we talk about the pests, the tapes, we talk about what's going on nowadays.
With the cloud,
and let's a little bit profit what was going on with the disaster recovery in the near future.
Maybe hold on for a second, because I believe you have something to say.
Them?
Pardon?
I can take it.
Grab the guitar.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I would like to exchange you for a moment, because I have...
Exchange me?
Yeah,
Host!
yeah, it's not easy. It's not difficult.
Shouldn't
be difficult.
That's crazy, but I believe in that you have some idea.
Yes, I have
behind
an
it.
idea, because I believe you have something also to say about the future. And the question first goes to you, my friend.
About the future?
Yeah.
I think the future will be bright.
Or for the disaster recovery.
We cannot skip the strength of the cloud. So more and more next year we'll see the movement from the disaster recovery into the disaster recovery as a service. So more and more cloud providers will gain and took a part of the existing disaster recovery procedures and secondary side from our customers. I don't know if you don't need to agree.
Yeah.
So it's one statement, Christian.
Okay, so disaster recovery
As a service definitely is a future.
Okay. And
So the new destinations.
in your opinion, Christian?
My opinion is the operating system will disappear soon. Basically is that, microservices will take over everything. And disaster recovery of an operating system will not be applied anymore. In the next 5 to 10 years, you will not have a server anymore. Basically, you just deploy a new microservice up and running, but you still need recovery test. What I mean by that is...
What do we tell Bill?
Anyways,
OS will disappear. What do Windows
Windows
what the
disappear.
Microsoft will do? Okay, they have Azure.
Yeah, exactly, Azure.
But it's the bad news I think, for Bill.
No, but what happened is that you're deploying new infrastructure. Boom, 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 boom. Everything's up and running. But now you have the data. How can you get the business up and running again? Now we're talking about cloud, AI, blockchain. Everything comes in the same area where you need to push up everything quickly, but also deploy it together with archive. So have all the data archived somewhere. You know where you're going to search for, and you need to test it as soon as possible. So literally what can happen is a customer has a full infrastructure up in AWS and want to test it somewhere, and they deploy a new system into Azure and see does everything work in there as well. That is disaster recovery. Means that once cloud provider disappears, in the new one, deploy a new one, they were up and running.
Okay, so it sounds like the guy knows what he's talking about.
That's why he's here.
All right. And what about you, my friend?
I think
your
it's a quite dramatic statement that all of the OS will disappear, but for sure the containers will take a huge part of the new infrastructure and the way how the digital transformation is right now moving in most companies. So disaster recovery need to be changed. But again, my statement is cloud will be take as much as possible. So this will be a major destination for the most companies. This is my opinion.
All right. Interesting, I believe. Okay, Christian, last question and few tips for the CXO. What would you suggest? What is your advice?
So basically is that go back to the barbecue, have a good time, make sure have a cold beer, put the ribs on the grill,
let it cook for 3 hours, then put on some barbecue sauce on it, relax, and make sure your disaster recovery test is testing everything on a regular basis, at least once a year. That's actually my good tip. And make sure it's automated. And otherwise, you're just losing money.
That was a beauty one.
This was the Friday Dose, the Backupmonster show. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okulary.
Co?
Przepraszam. Sorry, I say glasses. What? That was great. The sauce. Let me introduce. Come here, my friend.
Way! No nie, no.
Dobra, co? Spokojnie. Once
Co ty, o czym ty myślisz?